Hello, good afternoon. We're happy from having you here. This is our fourth meeting of the IFER, this Interdisciplinary Forum for Environmental Research. And we're going to have this meeting, we're going to have this dynamic. First of all, we got Licenciado Luis Garcia, César Garcia, perdón, I'm sorry. And he's going to talk. He comes from from the Sociedad de Plantas Nativas de Baja California, del área de Baja California aquí en Tijuana. And he's going to talk about some of his work he has been doing for a few years, from like 1 decade or something like that. Okay, and after that, we're going to have a small dinner outside the building. And, well, first he's going to talk about this work, and then we're going to have a small time for questions and commentaries. And after that, we're going to leave the place to have these gorditas for eating. And after that, we're going to have our next presentation about the themes we're working on the MAIA, on the Maestría en Administración Integral del Ambiente here in Colef. We are students from there. And after that, we are going to have like the closure of the event, and then we're leaving to the El Centro, to the downtown, to have another dinner or maybe a coffee or some beers. You can have a beer or wine on my right side if you want. And well, welcome. Have a nice.
So, hi. ¿Cuánto tiempo tenemos? Tengo 50 minutos. All right. Okay, so, well, I don't know how all right is it for to have 50 minutes of me yapping all the time. So let's see. I will try to make this rich and informal and as friendly as possible, so you don't hear me yapping for 50 minutes. Everybody here speaks English, right? Everybody can listen to me properly? Yeah, well, you guys are from California. Todos los mexicanos hablan perfecto inglés, ¿verdad? Y me escuchan, me entienden y todo. Bueno, si por alguna razón no entienden algo, de repente yo soy muy atrabancado en mi habla, si algo no entienden o les parece que no entienden lo que estoy diciendo, con calma, con gusto me detienen y les puedo elaborar un poquito mejor en español. So, the theme of my talk was conservation opportunities and dissemination of the plant richness of Baja California. And this sounds like a really big title for my talk, but it's actually just the conservation and dissemination opportunities that we might have in Baja California through the optics of what we've done in Nativos de las Californias and through the Baja California Native Plant Society, which is the two organizations I'm fronting, and I'm wearing two hats right now. So, first of all, I'd like to thank the people from MAIA for inviting me. It's a huge honor for me to be here because I'm not a scientist. I'm not formally trained. I'm basically a citizen trying to do environmental work and advocacy. So for me to be here in front of you is very rich and humbling. So let's start with my yap. So this is me about, what is this, like 20, 30 years ago. This is me right here in the green sweatsuit. And I don't know if you can tell, but this is, the screen doesn't, oh great, it doesn't work. Okay, so this is a vernal pool. Do all of you know what a vernal pool is? No? So lift your hands up and tell me who of you do not know what a vernal pool is? Who do not know what a vernal pool is? Okay, so vernal pool is basically it's a really weird ecosystem that is very that happens in this region, in the Mediterranean region of both Californias, and it's basically an ephemeral wetland that occurs. Of course, in the rains, after the rains, but it happens. It occurs because of clays and basically clay soils that become saturated and become flooded. And these ephemeral wetlands do not drain out because the soil is so compacted, because it's so thick with clay, and it fosters a unique type of vegetation and fauna that can only occur in vernal pools. So these pools are very rich in biodiversity, but they're also extremely endangered because they usually occur on flat mesas where most of the development occurs on both sides of the Californias. So this is me in 1978, and I spent my childhood years running around vernal pools and coastal sage scrub here in Tijuana. Most of this stuff is gone now. And when I was a kid, I really wanted to become a biologist or a scientist of some sort. I never was able to materialize that dream in a formal way. And instead, I have a bachelor's in education, and I dabbled in art and music in an interesting way for about 20 years of my life. And eventually, when my kids were born, a little less than 10 years ago, I lamented myself that my kids would not be able to have the access to nature that I had. This was in basically my backyard. So I would just walk a couple of yards outside of my house, and I would be surrounded by coastal sage scrub or vernal pools, depending on the season of the year. And I always liked hiking, and I always fed my love for nature. But when my kids were born, this was really confronting to me. So I started reading about it, reading about native plants in California and Baja California, reading about the ecosystems, and eventually I became sort of an expert in my region. I am a member of the California Native Plant Society, which I'm very proud of that, because they have basically permitted me to be here tonight because of the facilitation of educational materials that they share with the community at large. So when I was a teenager, and I talked about the stuff that I had seen when I was a kid, most biology teachers really didn't understand what I was talking about, and they would say, "Yeah, well, this is a desert," and they would go on, and I was like, "No, this can't be a desert. This is you're mad. Come on, give me a break." So in Mexico, this idea that the northwestern corner of Baja California is a desert is a very ingrained idea, and it's very commonplace for people to say this. So that our desert in Baja California, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful place, and it's a very rich and biodiverse place. So we have vegetation examples plant examples like the cardone, Pachyceres pringlei, and I'm sorry, but the pointer's not going to work here. So we have sorry about that. So we have cardones, we have creosote bush, which is gobernadora in Spanish, and we have ocotillo, Fouquiera splendens. This is in the Catavina region, about 10 hours from here. So this is our desert. This is our central desert, also known as the Vizcaíno Desert. We have other three very charismatic specimens like Myrtilla cactus cochal, Pachyceres pringlei, we'd seen it in the last image, and Calliandra areophila. This is a beautiful fairy duster. This is the common name. And yet, do we see these plants here in Tijuana or in San Diego? Would we see these plants here? No. So then we do not live in a desert. And don't get me wrong, our deserts are beautiful. This is another example of a bush called Crossosoma bigelovii. Beautiful. Seen from Catavina. But again, this is not the place where we currently live. So where do we live? So we live in the northwestern corner of Baja California. Well, at least I do. And as you can see, we're a part of something bigger that is cross-border, the California Floristic Province. If you see the California Floristic Province in Baja California, you would see that it occurs in the northwestern corner of the state. Most of it is desert. Well, this is two states. This is Baja California and Baja California Sur. But our state is about 70% desert. But it is not where most of our urban centers occur. Most of our urban centers are coastal: Tijuana, Rosarito, Ensenada, and Tecate in the mountains. So we live in a Mediterranean region of the world. We must acquiesce that we are only 5 Mediterranean regions in the world. All of them are really, really biodiversity rich, and most of them are really endangered because of its temperate climate. You want to take a picture? Yeah. I'm going to wait for you. Okay. Good times. I don't know. So what makes us different from the desert region, because we're really, really dry, mostly dry on both regions, is something called the California current, which brings us enough wetness to make this region a different place. Do we have any biologists around here? So you guys know the spiel, and you know what I'm talking about, right? So then all the wetness from the California current occurs in the northwestern corner, and then because of a rain shade, the desert gets with virtually no wetness. Then we have the Santa Ana winds, which dry up the place in autumn, and you can see the dust flying off to the coast, which we have not really had any Santa Ana winds this year, which is really weird. So what is the California floristic province? So again, it's a region in the world where there's a Mediterranean climate. We know that it occurs north of El Rosario in Baja California, and scientists don't really agree, but some say that it ends in Big Sur, or some scientists say that it ends in southern Oregon. This is something that they should figure it out. And of course, to the east, we limit to the Mojave Desert, the Sonoran Desert, and to the south, to the Central Desert or the Vizcaíno Desert. It is a place that has around 7,000 species of plants, around 700 species of animals, and it's one of the 10 hotspots in the greater hotspots of biodiversity in the world. So anybody know what is a biodiverse hotspot? Yeah, you guys know. So just to be on the same side, a biodiverse hotspot is a place that is tremendously rich in biodiversity, but is also tremendously endangered. So the CFP is one of the 35 richest biodiverse places in the world, but it's one of the 10 most endangered because of all of the rural, industrial, residential development that occurs in our region on both sides of the border, sadly. Again. So what plant communities do we have in the California floristic province? And here, especially in northwestern Baja California, we have coastal sage scrub. We have coastal sage scrub and chaparral, which are dominant communities. I think I'm going a little too fast. So some of the two representative species of coastal sage scrub would be Malosma laurina and Malacathamnus fasciculatus. These would be laurel sumac in English and bush mallow in English. En español sería Malosma lentisco o una malva de chaparral o de arbusto que le llamamos. Chaparral is I'll go back a little for coastal sage scrub. Coastal sage scrub are basically low growing shrubs. Most of them are plants that go dormant. Some of them are plants that have the capacity to go dormant in summer. They'll lose the leaves, and you might see all the twigs all standing around, and you might think the plant is dead. But then when the rains come back, the foliage grows back, and the plant continues its life. Some of these plants are also aromatic. So when you step in around coastal sage scrub, you'll smell the fragrance of herbs, of sages, of artemisia. Some people also call it soft chaparral, which is a little bit of a misnomer because there is something different going on between both plant communities, but we could say it's soft chaparral. And then we have real chaparral. We have two dominant species, like Adenostoma fasciculatum, or chamise in English, or chamiso. And then we have manzanita on top, Arctostaphylos, the genus Arctostaphylos. These chaparral is much taller, is usually 2 to 3 meters in height, and the leaves are really hard. They're sclerophilous. It's one of the strategies for them to save water. And I love a phrase that one of my heroes, Rick Halsey from the California Chaparral Institute, says: if you go into the shrublands and you don't know what it is, if you come out smelling like cough syrup, then it's coastal sage scrub. But if you come out all bloody and scraped, then it's chaparral. So next time you're in shrubland, you know where it is. You know what it is. Are we all right? Am I going too fast? All right. I'll do a parenthesis. Can you guys tell me what sort of careers and what are you guys doing in SDSU? Just a couple of you. I know I've seen a couple of biology hands, and then I'm at UCSD, but literature. Okay. So very transdisciplinary. Anybody else want to share what are they doing in economics? Okay, cool, great. Political science. Yeah, we need politicians to get involved in this. It's so hard. All right. And another dominant plant community is oak woodland. The Tijuana River would be some place that would have been dominated by oak woodland around 200 years ago. For us to see oak woodland now close to Tijuana, we'd have to drive probably like 30 minutes to Boulevard 2000 to see the remaining stands of oak woodland in Tijuana. The oak woodlands are really important because oaks are so huge and long-lived beings. They harbor a lot of they create habitat for a big charismatic fauna like pumas and mountain lions and owls, all sorts of stuff that we usually think of is important, and they can live in the oak woodlands. Repairing corridors, yes. In the Tijuana River used to be one of the biggest repairing corridors in northwestern Mexico. Sadly, because of the concrete channelization of the Tijuana River, most of the repairing corridor has been destroyed. There's a small remaining patch of riparian forest in Tijuana called Olimar Creek, which is one of the rivers that feeds into the Tijuana River, and it actually is two rivers, one the Cottonwood Creek in San Diego and Tecate River in Tecate, and it becomes Olimar Creek once it crosses into Mexico. And about 15 NGOs, we've been fighting state and federal government for us to keep Olimar Creek as a forest and not as a channelized place, not to be channelized with concrete. This is something that has been really controversial in the region. Federal water authorities contend that this place should be channelized with concrete because it'll prevent flood and you can develop the area. But all of the environmental organizations and academics say, well, you're going to lose all their environmental services this place has. It's a green space, and as you know, Tijuana is very greatly lacking in green spaces. Two beautiful flowers from a repairing corridor, Aquilegia formosa and Mimulus cardinalis. And this is one of my favorite ecosystems or plant communities, which is vernal pools. You'll see a small vernal pool here, and I believe this is Mesa El Descanso around Rosarito, between Rosarito and Ensenada. And their vernal pools are beautiful because they have different phases. This is about past winter, but in spring, when the water usually dries up, you'll see a prairie of wildflowers. So you might see California poppies or Lasthenia or Linanthus, all sorts of really tiny, beautiful colored flowers that can pretty much only occur around vernal pools. Both Californias, according to a study by a friend of mine, Matt Williams, and Kristen Hasenstab, we've lost more than 95% of all vernal pools on both sides of the Californias. Luckily for you guys, or for us on the other side of the border, most vernal pools are protected on the federal, state, and municipal level in California. In Mexico, we have virtually no protection for vernal pools in Baja California yet. There's only one species that has been protected federally. And just to shock you guys, just in case you don't know the figures, pretty much in Tijuana, we've lost all of our riparian corridors. Most of our oak woodlands are pretty much gone also. And chaparral, I don't know about chaparral. I think it's pretty healthy, yet it's disappearing at a very fast rate. If you go around Tecate, you're going to see a lot of chaparral being destroyed in the name of development and urban growth. Coastal sage scrub, according to World Wildlife Fund, we've probably destroyed about 70% of the coastal sage scrub on both sides of the Californias. So I'm talking about at least plant communities. So 5 representative species of native plants. What would they be? Well, we have this beautiful Matlia poppy, which would occur usually around chaparral line. Melosma larina, which is a plant. It's a plant that usually you would only see it around coastal sage scrub, and yet it's a pretty big plant. It'll get all the way up to 5 meters wide, 3-4 meters high if you leave it if you don't disturb it, of course, if you don't burn it, or if you don't drive a caterpillar through it. It's pretty long-lived, over 75 years, and it's a very important plant for bird fauna. Lemonade berry, or Rus integrifolia. When we were kids, we used to eat the fruits, and they taste like lemons. It's a good source of vitamin C. It's a beautiful plant, also from the Anacardaceae family, related to their previous plant. And this will it's also of coastal sage scrub component, and it'll grow to 3 meters in height, 4 meters, above 75 years in age if you leave it. And both of these plants are green all year long, so it doesn't conform to this idea that coastal sage scrub vegetation loses all of its leaves in summer, and they just look like really scraggly. California buckwheat, Eriogonum fasciculatum. It has I hate common names, but this plant has around 5 common names in Spanish. So that you might hear it as maderista, alforfón, all sorts of weird poleo, all sorts of weird names that people use around it. This is a really beautiful bush. It's mostly green all year long, and it's the host plant for the painted lady butterflies. So it's a really important plant for wildlife also. It usually has a lot of European bees around it, and it's just a beautiful plant all around. Tyon, or Heteromeles arbudifolia. This is one of the plants that still has one of its native names, human names. So it's pretty much a small tree. It likes to grow in shaded canyons or around riparian corridors, but you will see it in coastal sage scrub or around chaparral. And it's usually evergreen also, and it has these beautiful red berries around winter. So it looks very, very Christmassy. And you could eat the berries. You have to just put them in shade a week or two, and let them turn black, and you can eat them like raisins. They look really pretty, and you might be tempted to eat them, but they taste like wax, and they have like some sort of cyanide. So I would not advise it for you guys to eat it. Oh, one other disclaimer on the lemonade berry. Lemonade berry is a relative to poison oak. So if you have some extreme sensibilities to poison oak, I would not recommend you guys eat this. So eventually, I did not. No conectamos la bocina, pero bueno, ahorita vemos eso. So I've been talking to you about the communities of native plants and the different plant communities that occur, or some of the native plant communities that occur around northwestern Baja California. So in 2011, I started learning all this stuff, and I started doing my home gardens in native plants, and I became sort of an expert. And I say this with a grain of salt because, again, I'm not formally trained, so I'm not a true expert in the subject. But I knew that there was a niche where I could participate. Me being a school teacher, I knew that there was a huge disconnect between government agencies, academia, and the general public. So I knew there was something I had to do. So I don't know if could we connect some audio? ¿Podemos conectar audio? ¿Se fue este chico? ¿Tienes audio? ¿Tenemos audio? Es un cable especial. Bien, cierto. Okay, so I'm gonna get out of my presentation. I'm gonna show you something, a video. Am I boring you guys? No, you guys. So great. In 2011, I knew that I could do something. So eventually, I prepared to do environmental fairs and started assembling multimedia material, images, videos, activities for kids. And eventually, I saw this video in English, and I met the creator, James S. Riley, who is a conservationist in Southern California. And he had done a lot of work around trestles. I imagine you were familiar with it. So he did a lot of restorations around trestles. And I wrote to him and I told him if I could use his video about coastal sage scrub. And he called me, and eventually we hooked up. We became great friends. And we developed the same video in Spanish with some images of northwestern Baja California. So let me see if we can... I'm going to put the mic on here. And I hope you enjoy this.
El matorral costero alguna vez dominó nuestras costas de Alta y Baja California. Forma una gran capa verde gris y exuberante de arbustos entramados a nivel de los hombros. Aunque parece uniforme a lo lejos, una observación más cercana revela una alta diversidad de mezcla de especies. Esta es su historia. El elemento que más define al ambiente de matorral costero es el patrón de nuestras lluvias. Tenemos inviernos relativamente lluviosos, que traen mucho crecimiento y reverdecimiento a nuestro matorral costero. Pero al final de la primavera, sistemas de alta presión se forman en el noreste del Océano Pacífico y de la Gran Cuenca, empujando a las tormentas costa afuera o hacia el norte. Durante estas largas sequías, algunas de nuestras plantas nativas se vuelven secas e inactivas o caudicífolas. Estos inviernos lluviosos y sequías en verano definen nuestro clima mediterráneo, que compartimos solamente con otras 5 regiones a nivel mundial. Los últimos 2 millones de años, varios periodos glaciares han causado que el nivel del mar suba y baje cientos de metros. La acción de las olas en estas costas cambiantes, junto con los levantamientos tectónicos, han esculpido terrazas marinas en diferentes alturas. El levantamiento de los lechos de río también ha creado terrazas similares. Arroyos y ríos esculpieron valles y cañones mientras se elevaba nuestro relieve. El matorral costero enmarca algunos de nuestros hábitats más delicados. La planta más común en el matorral costero es la artemisa. Pero tenemos otras especies subdominantes. Enseguida tenemos algunas de las otras plantas perennes dentro del matorral costero. Tenemos muchas plantas anuales, todas una delicia para los ojos. Pero el matorral costero está amenazado. Nuestra costa ha sido tremendamente desarrollada. Un poco menos obvio, nuestras zonas rurales también han sido transformadas similarmente. En San Luis Obispo County, el pastoreo y la ganadería han cambiado mucho matorral costero en zacatales. Fragmentos de la antigua y rica comunidad de matorral costero aún permanecen, siendo un recuerdo de lo que se ha perdido. Nuestro hábitat de matorral costero está gravemente reducido o degradado con especies invasivas formando monocultivos. El matorral costero provee hábitat para muchas especies importantes que se alimentan, crían y dependen de esta comunidad única de plantas. El matorral costero recicla nuestro carbono, filtra nuestra agua, reabastece nuestro oxígeno y restaura nuestro espíritu. Solo tenemos un medio ambiente y una vez perdido, nunca puede ser totalmente recuperado. Matorral costero, un recurso esencial, una herencia de gran valor.
All right, so what do you think of the video? Okay, so let me get out of this. There. So that video was developed by James Riley and I, and we've showed it around all of Baja California, well, northwestern Baja California, with good reviews and good people who usually are not aware of the richness, the floral richness that we have in our region. And again, most people assume that this is a desert and that nothing will grow here. So it's really, really fun, or it's cool for us to be turning that around and for showing people that we do have a really important and diverse, rich natural heritage. What happened to my presentation? Oh, I know. So this is a very a hugely endangered species, Fremonidendron mexicanum. It's a tree. It's a small tree called Fremontia in English, or palo florido in Espanol. We basically have all of our populations in Mexico, even though it carries our name, our country's name. Most of our populations have pretty much been destroyed. We recently found a population of Fremonidendron mexicanum in Valle de las Palmas, very close to Tijuana, about 40 minutes from here. And it's a very healthy population, about probably less than 1,000 individuals. But most of the healthy populations are across the border on Otay Mountain. This is one of the unique species in northwestern Baja California that is federally protected. So for us to find this plant is really important, and for it to be federally protected is also really is substantial, because it's a plant that we know we could use the laws to protect. Just so you guys can. So this is one of the opportunities for conservation that we have here, or the challenges that we are facing. Of around 2,300 native specimens that occur in northwestern Baja California, how many do you think are federally protected? Which is, by the way, is the only way that we can protect species, is by federal. Some are not NOM 059 list. Just anybody? Zero. Well, probably 2, 5. 3? Well, that's pretty pessimistic, but it's actually not that far away from the truth. It's around 30. Around 30 species of 2,300 species that we have that occur naturally just in the northwestern corner of Baja California. This is not even counting the desert. And most of these 30 species are just coniferous, which only occur in the Sierras, in Sierra Juarez and Sierra San Pedro Martir, which are pretty much going to disappear anyways because of global warming. So. This is only for plants, yes. I do not know. It would be a thing to check out. The list is online, so we could check it out. I'm not an animal expert, so I really couldn't probably answer you. Something really important about our native habitat is the relationship with the soil, and this is something that might be something small or something that might not a little detail, but as the Donald would say, this is huge. And why is this huge? Well, our native plants, some of the strategies that these plants have evolved to respond to the lack of water, of humidity, is a relationship with fungi, with mycorrhiza. So these plants enter into a symbiotic relationship, and they through photosynthesis they drop down sugar to the fungi, to the mycorrhiza, and the mycorrhiza give back water to the plants. So this is, have you seen the movie Avatar? You guys seen the movie? Well, it's very similar to this. So this would be a root from some plant, and then the mycorrhiza would connect to the plant, and they interchange sugars and water. This is amazing, because this explains why these plants are alive most of the time of the year, and why they're green, especially chaparral plants. Why are they green when it hasn't rained for months? And again, I'm saying this is huge because there's been a couple of studies coming out. Well, of studies that have been coming out. First, that arid ecosystem habitats have a very important capacity to sequester carbon. So mature stands of chaparral or coastal sage scrub, imagine these mycorrhizal networks, they might expand for miles underneath healthy habitat. So it has a huge implications for carbon sequestration. And this is something that I know we could use this as leverage to conserve our native habitats. So this is a really important opportunity for conservation in northwestern Baja California and in arid ecosystems all over the world. So after we developed this video and did a couple of science fairs, we started planting native plant gardens in schools, in public schools in Tijuana. So the kids could have these plants in their schools, could see them how they evolved in the seasons, and could see them grow and attracting wildlife. This is in junior high in Tijuana, also in Tijuana. Again, this is some of the things we've done on our environmental fairs. This is an actress called Grisel Avilés, and she's reading a book called Grandmother Oak. So it's a story about oaks. So this is also an important way to let kids know about their natural heritage. Some of the work we've also been doing, especially in Nativos, is making relationships and facilitating knowledge to native plant nurseries. How many native plant nurseries do you think we have in Baja California? 2. Well, it's actually more like 4, but they're all pretty small. So these native plant nurseries can't supply government institutions or big contract projects. These are very small industries. They work with very little money, with very little knowledge sometimes, and they're doing it because they love native plants and what they can possess. They can offer. This is the second of the native nurseries here in Tijuana. Again, as you see, they're very, very small, very little operations. We have another 2 native nurseries in Ensenada. They're getting to be a little bigger now. So we've also been doing a lot of talks and hikes. This is for a special interest group called Neuroartes, and we had visited this place in pretty much central Tijuana, and it was a beautiful place because on one side it was all coastal sage scrub, and on the other side, on the north-facing side, it was pretty much maritime chaparral, which is a variant of chaparral that occurs close to the coast. And this was probably like 2 years ago. This is gone now, so it's been trampled over by bulldozers, and it's getting ready for a factory or some sort. So we're losing these places at a really fast rate. Eventually, through my work with Nativos, I started meeting a lot of people that were interestingly doing similar stuff with native plants and habitat, and they were doing it in their own small niches. But we really were not involved in a network. Many of us had were familiar with the California Native Plant Society, and we knew of the importance of the work that they were doing. So in 2013, a group of us from Tijuana and Ensenada, we petitioned the California Native Plant Society to become a formal chapter of the California Native Plant Society. It was a long story. We knew we had to have something like CNPS in Baja California, but we really didn't know what it would be. Eventually, we talked to Executive Director Jan Glusenkamp, and he said, "Well, let's make a chapter." So eventually, after we petitioned in 2013 to become a chapter, in that summer, we became the first international chapter of CNPS, and the 34th and first international chapter. So this is very important because California Native Plant Society in 2016 has 50 years of work in native plants and habitat in California. So for us to be sharing that expertise and that knowledge with our Mexican partners is really important and really helpful. This is the recognition ceremony we had in Playa de Tijuana at the border on the Mexican side. Here is Dan Glusenkamp, CMPS's executive director. And this is a really interesting character, Mitch Beecham. He's one of the founders of the San Diego chapter. So for him to have been present in our chapter's inauguration was really, really important. So we do a lot of talks with the public in general and with decision makers. This is a group of this is Pedro Arce and Sergio Irales and Sergio Mata talking about a project that was to become a state endangered list, and that would have included fauna and flora. This project is sadly it's on the books. Legislators do not want to move this forward as it might imperil economic development. Jose Delgadillo and Vince Scheidt, two very important botanists on both sides of the border. This is one of our activities that we do as the California Native Plant Society in Baja California, as field trips. This is Sula Vanderplank. This is one of our foremost experts on maritime succulent scrub, and Luis Montes, a local expert also on conifers and desert plants. They're observing. We were invited Guadalupe, and we were flabbergasted because we saw three specimens of different ericaceae. We were seeing manzanita, xylococcus, and Baja birdbush, which are beautiful bushes from the Chaparral region, and it's not as common to see them all together. So this is again a trip to Valle de Guadalupe, a field trip. Usually our field trips are they get pretty big. You get 50, 60, 70 people in the field, all learning about native plants and habitat. We eventually developed a logo which would mirror our binational condition, the fact that we are Mexican, that we are interested in working in Mexico, but that we are also part of something bigger, like the California Floristic Province. We are a part of the California Native Plant Society. So in Mexico, for legal purposes, we are Sociedad de Plantas Nativas de Baja California, but we know that we depend and we are part of the California Native Plant Society. This logo was designed by a local artist, Foy Jimenez and Charles Glaubitz. This is a Dudleya. It's Dudleya brittonii, which is an endemic from, Dudleya anthonii, which is an endemic species from San Quintin Bay and some of the volcanoes there. This is World Environment Day in Tecate. If all these little kids are looking at a pet frog we had, a pet tree frog that we had collected from a vernal pool. So the kids were really interested in seeing, of course, animals and fauna. And with that idea, we start talking to them about the importance of plants and the importance of habitat, and about how without these components, you can't have fauna, you can't have wildlife if we don't have plants and habitat. This is something real fun for me. I was invited to give a talk about native plants and habitat at the San Pablo Evangelical Church community. So this is really, for me, it was really interesting because I usually talk I'm a free thinker, I'm an atheist or an agnostic, something like that. And so for me to be speaking to these religious people in their terms was really, really fun. And I had the chance to use a phrase that went something like, "If you love thy Lord so much, why are you so intent on destroying his creation?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, we get it." So it was like. So it was real fun to see that this church community has a couple of acres of maritime chaparral. So for them to get it and to understand that it was important for them to conserve the plot of land and not to burn it or pave over it was something really cool. A good friend of ours, Ricardo Campos Pamanes. He's a really fun guy. We're doing their Eco Cimarrones Science Fair at Wabase here in Tijuana, and he's a really great guy. He's one of my heroes, I guess. He's also like me. He has no formal background whatsoever in native plants. He's more of a technician. He works with consultants, and he actually is the one who made the discovery of the Fremontodendron mexicanum in Valle de las Palmas. There it is again. He did the discovery, and he eventually wrote up a report for it, and somebody else filed it because he felt he didn't have the clout to file a report. Here he is, Ricardo Campos Pámanes. And he is standing right now to the rare sighting of a Ceanothus thyrsophloris. You can't see it really. It's a tree-like Ceanothus. Are you guys familiar with Ceanothus? No. So it's one of the components of chaparral. It's one of the dominant species in chaparral habitat, and this species is not considered to occur in Baja California. And this was a resighting. This was a reconfirmation sighting that we did. This species had been sighted in 1980 in the same place, and nobody had ever seen this species again. And after a CNPS Baja California rare plant treasure hunt, we confirmed the sighting, and we know it still exists. This is a really interesting activity that CNPS does, the rare plant treasure hunt. Some of any of the experts in CNPS will decide based on priorities what plants need to be found, or we need to find if they're still there or they're gone. And it's really helpful to see if we still have these specimens or if they're pretty much gone. So when we're trying to do paperwork to get these species listed, you'll say, "Oh well, it's apparently extinct in X or Y place." But hey, we found it in we reconfirmed the sighting. So this is a really important activity. This is again Sula Vanderplank, Josue Campos, and Alejandro Rodriguez doing the rare plant treasure hunt in Cañón Hediondo and around Ensenada. Side note, Alejandro Rodriguez, this man with the white hair, he was one of the liaisons to Reed Moran. Anybody know who Reed Moran is? No? Reed Moran is pretty much the biggest botanist in the history of California, in modern day history of California. And he has more botanical vouchers in the herbariums than pretty much most anybody in California. And Alejandro Rodriguez was his liaison when Reed Moran used to come down to Baja California. So for us to have found the specimen again in the company of Alejandro was really, really amazing. Some of the work we do is in Nativos and the Baja California Native Plant Society is not just looking out for natural areas or looking for specific species. We're also interested in doing green infrastructure. And this is a place called Cañón de los Sauces here in Playas de Tijuana. And this was a place that had been rescued by a couple of NGOs, Proyecto Fronterizo de Educación Ambiental, and the Tijuana River Estuary in Imperial Beach. And this place eventually has become vegetated with native plants, and we're sensitizing and sharing knowledge with the people that work in this park and the people that will be using this park, so they'll understand why are we replacing plants that are exotic and that shouldn't be there technically, and where are we planting these plants that some people think that they only belong in the hills. Some of the spring talks that we had last year, this is in Tijuana, with Susan Krzwicki, which is CNPS's landscaping horticulture director. Paula Pijuan, our vice president, doing another talk here in Tijuana. We've also been doing some cross-border work, talking to the Hispanic communities in California, and this is a health fair that was being done in Olivewood Gardens in National City, and we got invited by them. And so it was really nice to be talking to the Hispanic public about native habitat and native plants. And if anybody have ever been to CNPS's meetings in California, you'll find out that most people are of a certain age. Some people are retired, and they're usually white. So for us to be talking to Hispanic communities or people of color, it's really important for them to get them involved and to get them and feel a part of the community, be it on this side of the border or on the other side. Environmental Day again in Tecate. 2 years ago we had I'm not sure if it was 2 years ago or last year. We did a special field trip with the CNPS Chapter Council, which is all the delegates of all the different chapters in CNPS. And we had an activity at the Tijuana River Estuary, and we did a real nice field trip in El Salto and La Misión. So it was great having experts, native plant experts from California, Northern, Central California, of course, Southern California again, and our people, and just sharing about our dominant plants in our habitats, and for them to be finding the relationships and the similarities between both habitats. There are all the chapter councils and some of our group in El Salto. Some of the work we also do in the California Native Plant Society Baja California chapter is try to influence public policy. And last year we decided, we knew that when we were combing through the list, the federal protected species list, Mexican. So we found out that we had around 30 specimens, 30 species that were only protected federally. So this is really nasty for us, because we know that we have very little laws that we could work with to protect these plants. So we decided that we needed to put in a couple of submissions, especially the ones that we thought would be umbrella species for specific habitats that were really endangered, or for plants that were really just had really small populations, and we knew that we had to get protected. So with the help of Gabriela Corona, who is a biologist from Mexico City, we authored 9 new plant submissions to the Mexican Federal Endangered Species List. Sadly, we don't know when they might be approved, if they get approved at all. If they do, it would be an increment of about 33%, which is pretty big for what we had already. We have a mole inside the federal agency, and they said that the reports were really well made, and they should be passed. But you know how policy and politics works in Mexico or any place in the world, so we really don't know what is the process for these submissions. We're about to do a workshop with other people, so other people can do their own submissions for plants that they might consider to be endangered, or that have a substantial threat for them to disappear. So this is something that is ongoing, and it's something that we're really dedicated to doing. Different field trips. This is one photo of. This is one of the 3 groups that had this field trip. So we had like 80 people in this field trip. So this is really, really amazing. A lot of the work we also do is try to engage public officials and public institutions, which is not easy, because I don't know what happens in California, but in Mexico, a lot of decision makers, it's really a revolving door. So a lot of these politicians or these government officials will be in office in office for 6 months or a year, and then they're out, and then comes this new guy. So when we start working with these institutions, it's really hard for us that we start talking to these officials. They're interested in doing some sort of project, and then they get the boot, and somebody new comes in, and we have to start all over again. So here we are at the municipal nursery in Parque Morelos here in Tijuana, and we've been influencing their nursery, and they've started to grow a couple of specimens, of native specimens, but they're still pretty much set on propagating exotic invasives, which is a no-no for us. This is a site of a native demonstration garden we are planning in Parque Morelos in Tijuana. This used to be the embankment for the Tijuana River. So you would imagine a riparian forest here. So we're planning something different here, because it has no more water anymore. So we really don't know what we're going to be planting there. But we're a little excited about this. Some of the stuff we've done also in Tecate. I don't have any new images for this, but this is the remodeling of Central Park in Tecate. There was a huge wrangle between the contractors the state government and us that we wanted all natives being planted in the park. Eventually, about 9 species were planted of natives. I don't have a recent image, but it turned out sort of okay. So it was a good compromise. And well, now of course, people from Tecate will be able to appreciate these plants in a public and urban setting. And of course, our some of the most important target or ideals for us is that the children, or my kids and my children's kids, will have the opportunity to enjoy nature in northwestern Baja California. As I was telling you, this is disappearing in a very, very fast rate, and the laws are insufficient in Mexico, and the little laws we do have are really not very they're not very being used properly for us to protect this. So for us, it's really important to protect this for the kids, because as you all know, nature is not just important in itself because of its rich biodiversity, but it is also important and essential in the it's more important and essential in the development of human life, not just for kids, but also for us adults and for elderly people. So I don't know if I should go on. Any questions or commentaries right now? Should I go on? Yeah. Yeah. You have a question? Yeah. What groups? You know what has really been eye-opening is when you show these the importance of native plants and habitat to kids that usually live in the periphery of the city and that are in some ways already know these plants. They play around in them, or they know them on their way to school, and so they've seen them. But nobody's ever told them that they're important, that they're unique in the world, that they're special to this place. So those kids usually respond in a special way, in a different way, and they and it's very touching. These are the schools that have kept the gardens much better than probably urban schools in a way. Yeah. So yeah, definitely kids that already maybe like, in a sense like me, that already that knew of these valuable natural resources, but that nobody had ever told them this is unique, this is special, this is yours. This is you're the keeper for these natural places. So yeah, I guess maybe that would be it. Another question back there.
So I was wondering about how hard, or I mean, I know it is kind of hard to bring plants through the border. So there are these big industrial nurseries that Caltrans and other people have that the state of California mandates for state parks and other people. We asked about it a while ago, and I know it was pretty difficult, but I was just wondering if you had any insights for how these things can, we're in a natural region that's one region, and yet the plants themselves can't cross the border. And here in Tijuana, there's only, there's the 2 or 3 small nurseries. And so, how do you move beyond that? If you wanted to go into the canyons and be like, okay, well, we want to put all these, this is for flood and erosion management and all these other, good human welfare reasons. How do you get that sort of large-scale nursery going in Tijuana without being able to transport?
Yeah, well, we're trying to, together with Pro Natura, which is a big NGO, and Tijuana Innovadora, which is also a big local NGO, we're trying to do a takeover, and I don't know if I should be saying this, but we're trying to make a takeover of the state nursery that is here in Tijuana, which has the capacity to produce around 300,000 specimens a year. So this is pretty big and has good infrastructure, but the people who work there really don't know about native plants, so we have to find a scheme for this to happen and for it to have continuity. Because as I was saying a while ago, once these politicians are gone, then the next guy comes in. If he thinks that your job is not worth it, he'll give you the boot, and you're gone. So that's one thing we're doing. Another thing we're doing is doing small native plant propagation workshops, just to show general public how to propagate really easy species. We will be having probably before spring a professional workshop from people from hopefully from Rancho Santa Ana, which is one of the premier native plant sites in California, and this would be offered to people who are have a little more expertise propagating or can identify their native plant species. So there's two things we're trying to do: teach the general public how to propagate your own plants, but also to take over official institutions that need to be turned around. And regarding your comment on bringing plants across the border, it's just it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's stupid not to be bringing these plants that share the same soil. It's the same place in the world. And then these commercial nurseries here in Tijuana, they'll bring plants over from Morelos, from Puebla, where there's a huge amount of water, and they have their own pathogens and they're bringing them over here. So this is it's an ecological nightmare for them to be doing this, but it's legal. Sadly it's legal. And the problem with what the federal authorities say is that you can't bring over soil from California because it might have pathogens. So that's the problem. You could bring plants with no soil if you would dare to do that, but it's not gonna. It's something that won't work.
The first one is if there are any studies that manage the environmental services, but by species, not by community or ecosystem, by species. The first one is that one, if there is any studies working with that. And the second one is currently there are 2 posters about conservations. So one steps up about when you have something endangered and you have something that is rare or endemic, you can not make use of it. You can make an aprovechamiento. So, and the other one is that you could do the use of the plants or use the community, even they're so endangered or endemic or something like that make them rare or unique. So I was wondering, what is your poster? What is your I don't know, thinking about that, those 2 steps on the same.
I'm not sure if I understand your second question, but your first question, I don't know. I really don't know if there's any study on specific species, on the environmental services that a specific species does. I really don't. You would have to ask Lena, probably. Lena, that would be the lady to ask. I've seen a lot of studies around habitat, specifically habitat or specific phases of habitat, like mature chaparral or mature coastal sagebrush, and the environmental services that they offer. But to a specific species, I don't know. I'm not really familiar with that. And for your second question, so you're asking if what is my posture on the use of endangered species, right?
Use it as a way to conserve them. As a
way to conserve. I don't know. Again, because I'm not formally trained, I'm more of a guerrilla guy. So yeah, I would definitely promote the use of endangered plants in urban landscaping, or if and when you would not endanger other populations, like for instance the probability of hybridization between 2 endangered species or a not so endangered one and a rare species. So those things would concern me. But then you have the laws on the book. So you can't be doing propagating and using endangered species currently in Mexico if you don't have a special permit to do that. but because we only have 30 species in the books, so that gives us a huge amount of space to be using, to work with. Yeah. In the example I showed you of the park in Tecate, they used Tecate cypress, which is a federally endangered species, and it turned out okay. I mean, they're propagating the species in some of the nurseries, so I don't know. What I tell people is, look, if there's no money in it, don't worry. Nobody's going to come knocking on your door and telling you to stop it. But when you start, if your operation becomes pretty big, that's when you have to worry and you have to put in all the legal paperwork, because there's quite amount of legal paperwork that you have to do, even not just for the endangered species specimens, but also for just regular natural plants. You have to have some sort of a permit, which is really a lot of red tape, basically. Because it's very easy for me as a developer to just ask for a change in land use, and I'll bulldoze everything. I'll probably just take out the cactus that are protected, the fair cactus or the mammillarias. I'll relocate them, and I can tear down all the manzanitas and the chamis and the salvias out, and it's all gone. And in a couple of minutes, it's all gone. So for me, it's yes, I'd love to do the right thing. But I don't think we have the time to really just go by the book in Mexico. And I don't know if I should be telling you this, but that's just my point of view. Off the record, yes. But we're being streamed on, right? So it's not that off the record. So any other questions? So let me just. So what can we do how can we help? Because in a certain way, it just becomes depressing if we start talking about all the dangers that our native plants are going against. So anything you could do. Of course, you guys are academics. I'm surely preaching to the choir here, but anything you can do to lighten up your footprint is important. Practice the 5 R's: reusing, rejecting, repairing, recycling, and I'm forgetting the other one. Buy less stuff. We don't need all this stuff. We could just go buy with less some jeans, and we don't need all this stuff and all this packaging and the blisters and it's just horrible. Get involved with an NGO of your preference. If it's an environmental NGO, get involved with them and get to know what they're doing and see if you can pitch in with them. Have less kids. This is something that touches a lot of sensibilities, but it is something that is really important. I was in the last January. We had the California Native Plant Society Conservation Symposium, and it was amazing to hear Peter Raven and especially Peter Raven, who is one of the fathers of the studies of the flora of California, and just speaking about his point of view that we're just too many humans on the planet, and the planet cannot support us all. So we can't expect to conserve what we have if we keep on breeding and reproducing like mad. Become a member of CMPS, please. Help to pitch in. We need more people. We need more young guys. You go to these meetings, and they're most of these cats are all retired. So go into them. Give us money. We need money. Yeah, we need an off-road vehicle. We need an off-road. We need some drones to do some vegetation surveys, please. And I'd just like to, if unless you have any more questions, I'd like to leave you with this field of annuals. Oh, this is just changed. This is Primula clevelandii, and isn't this just beautiful? And anybody of you have kids? Anybody have kids? No? You've seen the dinosaur train? You're familiar with the yeah? You've seen the dinosaur train? No? You've seen it? ¿Has visto el dinotren? El dinotren, la caricatura del dinotren, ¿no la han visto? Sí, sí la han visto. Al final, when the cartoon ends, the paleontologist gives his spiel about dinosaurs and everything, and then he says something really interesting to me that says, get outside, get into nature, and make your own discoveries. So with that, I'd like to thank all these people and foundations who have made it possible for me to be up here. So, thank you. And I have no business. I didn't bring any business cards, so if you want to email me or whatever, my email is pretty easy, cesargarcia@nativosac.org, and I'd be more than happy to write back to you.
Thank you so much, Cesar. And does anybody has another question or comments? That's it? Okay. We would like to make an apologize because of the cancellation of the presentation of Lynn Ojeda. She got a situation inside her family. And I don't know how, are you hungry? You want to have gorditas first? Because we had another presentation like for 15 minutes, 10 minutes. I don't know if you want first to have this. Flora is going to explain a little bit our thesis projects of the Maestría. And would you like to go forward? Yeah, please. And then.
Please be free of serving you wine or coffee or beers. There are beers on the back there. Okay, are we ready? ¿Ya casi listos? Ok, compañeros, vamos a dar inicio brevemente a esta presentación. Van a ser 10 minutitos máximo. Si me pasan, me dicen. We're going to start to share it with you our presentation. So it's going to be 10 minutes top. If I pass the time, please let me know. Because we're hungry. You're on time. Okay. Well, we want to share with you about our program degree here in el Colef, el Colegio de la Frontera Norte. We have nuestra maestría en Administración Integral del Ambiente, that it's kind of translate as environmental management and administration. So we have 3 core lines that it's called environmental management and public policies, socioeconomic aspects, and management of natural resources, and innovation and development of environmental systems. There's the 3 core lines. And we're a small group, about 20 people.
Exacto, yo voy a dar la parte en español. Bueno, es simultáneo esto. Bueno, la Maestría está dividida, o sea, tiene 3 líneas básicas de investigación en la cual estamos divididos los 20 estudiantes. Las estaremos presentando uno a uno y algunos de los proyectos que están dentro de esta parte. La primera, como bien mencionó Flora, es gestión ambiental y políticas públicas. La segunda, aspectos socioeconómicos y manejo de recursos naturales. Y la tercera, acerca de innovación y desarrollo de sistemas ambientales.
In the first one, we have some of the co-workers working with recycled waste in Tijuana, Baja California by Avisai Aragon. He's over there if you want to meet him. He's working about the communities and making efforts about about separating the recyclable waste in homes of Tijuana. He wants to try this as opportunity to management and to get involved with the public administration about the opportunities of the pipelines.
El primer tema es acerca de separación de residuos y disposición en Tijuana, el caso de estudio por el compañero Avisai Aragón. Él principalmente va a estar considerando acciones de política y cómo la gestión la gestión adecuada y la administración de los residuos en los hogares.
We have Felipe Mora. Reguera. He's working towards the construction of an assessment strategy for the social participation in fisheries management, the Cucupap case. He's working with how does the current fisheries management improve Cucupap well-being, which social and environment indicators can help us to evaluate social participation in a sustainable fisheries management, and to incorporate social criteria related to Cucupap participation in the fisheries management of Norte and Gulf of California. He also wants to contribute to the development of a strategy of social participation that improves the fishing management. It's an selected ethnic group of fishermen. They're located on. So in Spanish it's Cucapa.
Bueno, pues el segundo tema es a cargo de Felipe, acerca de la participación social en las pesquerías por la zona de la región del Alto Golfo de California, específicamente con los cucapas.
We also have Yuritsi Llamas over there. She's working with environmental civil society organizations and social involvement, the case of Alter Terra in Tijuana, Baja California. She's working with the ONGs and OSCs. She wants to analyze the social environmental impact of the trajectory of Alter Terra, identifying the strengths and weakness in the projects generated by them, and identify community involvement as a developed part of the projects implemented by Alter Terra in Los Laureles Canyon.
Bueno, el tercer proyecto es a cargo de Yuritsi Llamas, acerca de las organizaciones de la sociedad civil en cuestiones ambientales y el papel que tienen estas en el involucramiento de la sociedad. El caso de Alter Terra, a través de un análisis y recopilación de los proyectos que ha desarrollado esta organización del 2007 al 2015.
Los Laureles Canyon, with the Zumba project about getting enforcement of the community, right? And he starts tomorrow. And he already invited us, so everyone who can and want to join us. Well, the second core line is socioeconomic and natural resource management. Here we are a small group. So there is Nancy Nolasco. She's right back there. She's working about the skill requirements and environmental content of green job markets in geothermal energy. She's trying to make a comparative analysis about the academic offers and the industrial demand, especially in geothermal energies. She's working with renewable energies, and how is about the transition of the reforms in Mexico, how they are offering, demanding workers and the students or academics, academics, el perfil. So they're not getting the requirements that they're needed. So she's working with that.
Bueno, con la segunda línea, denominada aspectos socioeconómicos y manejo de recursos naturales, el primer tema es requerimientos en las habilidades y contenido energético de los empleos verdes, específicamente en el caso de la energía geotérmica, con nuestra compañera Nancy Nolasco. Ella lo que pretende hacer es hacer un comparativo de qué es lo que se está desarrollando en las escuelas y cuáles son los requerimientos que está solicitando este tipo de energía para ver realmente qué tan verdes son los empleos verdes.
Oh yeah, the point of this is to see what really green is, the green jobs. So something about that. There's also me, Flor de Lis Castro, working with conservation strategies of coastal scrub in the Mediterranean region of Baja California. Basically, I try to conserve not the ecosystem, the vegetal community, about getting involved to the people, and about making a use that leaves some profits to the people around the ecosystems that can really work, that can be viable. So
el siguiente tema de esta línea es acerca de estrategias de conservación del matorral costero en la región mediterránea de Baja California por la compañera Flor Castro. Ella pretende desarrollar estrategias de conservación para las especies de las que justamente nos hablaban hace un momento en las características tanto sociales, ambientales, económicas y antropológicas, ¿no? Bueno, solo las tres primeras.
just the first three.
Ok, para un mejor aprovechamiento de estas especies.
And the last one is innovation and development of environmental systems. Here has Jurendi, she's over there, the backside. She's working with the ability of unexplored carbon sequestration in urban parks, the Tijuana case. She's trying to, she's working with environmental services of urban parks with emphasis on carbon capture, something about what Cesar was telling us about, to promote urban parks as carbon sinks, to estimate the carbon sequestration potential of the parks in Tijuana, and to estimate the emission of dioxin carbon in the transport sector in Tijuana. As you can know, in Tijuana, we don't have parks enough. There are only like 2-3 major parks and some communal parks, but there's so less from the optimistic requirements in parks.
La tercera línea es acerca de innovación y desarrollo de sistemas ambientales y el primer tema que se presenta es por la compañera Yurendi Domínguez, que es acerca de captura de carbono en los parques, en el caso de Tijuana. Ella lo que pretende hacer es valorar los servicios ambientales de los parques urbanos con énfasis específicamente en la captura de carbono. Este tema es, de vital importancia debido a que Tijuana tiene un problema de que no tiene las suficientes áreas verdes comparado con los índices que están señalados a nivel global.
We have also Luis Garcia, he's in the back. He's working with recommendation for the sustainable development of wind power projects on Baja California. He is trying to apply the participatory strategy and evaluation criteria for the management of wind energy projects. And he's working with renewable energies, especially the aeolic one. And, you can read it better in there. So he's trying to identify an evaluation of sustainability criteria in these projects to contribute to their social acceptance.
El siguiente tema es acerca de nuestro compañero Luis García, que él va a hablar acerca de recomendaciones para la industria de proyectos del parque eólico en Baja California, específicamente en La Rumorosa, y él lo que pretende desarrollar es una estrategia de participación y evaluación de criterios de manera integral, porque existen muchos trabajos y proyectos en funciones económicas, pero dejan fuera la parte social y él se enfocará mucho en ello.
We also have Abraham Camacho. He's over there at the back. He's working with adaptation of wine companies in the Guadalupe Valley to water scarcity. He is looking for the effects of water scarcity and develop an early adaptation with integral water resource management, also identifying adaptation criteria of integral water resource management and organizational theory. He will be working with surveys and interviews.
El siguiente tema es acerca de la escasez hídrica en el Valle de Guadalupe, cómo las compañías o las empresas del vino están tomando medidas para llevarlas a cabo, por el compañero Abraham Camacho. Principalmente él abocará temas acerca de efectos de la escasez de agua, la escasez hídrica en esta región en particular, a través de encuestas y entrevistas hacia actores clave y cuáles son las estrategias de adaptación que están teniendo estas empresas para poder sobrellevar esta problemática.
We have also Marvin Góngora. He's working with the strategies of green logistics in the wines industry in Baja California. He's working with the construction of an ideal model for supply chain management of the wine industry in Baja California. He's also trying to identify adaptation criteria and recommendation for the sustainable development. He's trying to make a research about the life cycle analysis of the logistic defined by the logistic of the wine, organic and traditional wine.
Y el último es, en mi caso, Marvin Góngora, estrategias de logística verde en la industria del vino en Baja California, y lo que pretendo desarrollar es un modelo de la cadena logística y poder compararlo con las prácticas o las buenas prácticas que se desarrollan durante esta industria.
There are also so many works and research that we're taking, but we couldn't put them all. We have colleagues that they're working with renewable energies, they're working with ONGs, they're working with geothermal energies, also with the coffee cultives, organic cultives or something like that in Colombia, trying to see the the profit of this culture, but getting involved to the people and see if they have a perception of environmental lack of environmental perception or something like that. So the main goal of this presentation is to get you to know what we're doing here. There's also brownfields. Trying to see the brownfields in Tijuana and make them some green spaces about green infrastructure. So we want to let you know what we're doing here, because we see that we're sharing some teams and some lines. So it will be really interesting if we get each other and contact each other and to know what we're doing both sides of the front of the board. No, so.
Bueno, como podemos ver, los temas que abarca la Maestría en Administración Integral del Ambiente, son muy amplios, que van desde tipos de energía geotérmica, energía eólica, temas netamente de recursos naturales, productos agrícolas, productos industriales, y esta es una de las principales aportaciones que tiene esta maestría, que es muy amplia y se pretende una incorporación en todos los niveles y en todos los aspectos de la sociedad, tanto a nivel local, muchos trabajos son de tipo Tijuana, algunos son de tipo binacional en Baja California, en el país, e inclusive de tipo internacional en el caso de nuestras compañeras colombianas.
Okay, he was saying that we're working about local and international ways here in Mexico and Colombia, and more in the local way, but also the regional, the region of Mexico, well, the country. So thank you so much for your attendance, for being here, and let's get something to eat and drink.
Also, we will like to invite you tomorrow to another meeting. It's called something like Mexican Environment History, a passport for cruising the current boundaries. And it will be the main presentation. It's from Alejandro Tortolero. It's here in Colef in Tijuana, and it's going to be transmitted by internet. And at 11 o'clock, you can find out more information on our website, colef.mx. And what else? Any more announcements? That's all? Okay, thank you. Yeah?
Some other moment during their time. Alejandro is also a USMAX fellow, so he'll be giving another talk probably at UCSD somewhere along next quarter. And he's also, the office is in the Institute of the Americas. I don't want to abuse his time, but he's there in case you want to talk to him and take care of his knowledge. And if not, just 11 p.m., check it out on the internet. It's pretty good just to have it there if you have an interest into it. Kyle, to the center, please.
So as I mentioned in passing, we're going to start the Proyecto Suave Zumba classes tomorrow. So this sounds a little bit silly on the front of it. 3 of my students in the internship that I've run for the last 2 summers here in Tijuana with Alter Terra, 3 of them went and were very brave and won the Clinton Global Initiative. So they've received lifetime fellowships and some money to start a nutrition and gardening campaign here in Tijuana. This is going to be based out of Alter Terra. This is the first month that we're starting it. At the moment, the canyons here, and I don't know how many of you guys have worked out there a little bit, but it's a very strange area. It's informally developed. The community itself doesn't have a lot of cohesion. Like you guys said, there's no parks at all. All the coastal sage has just been scrubbed off the ground by bulldozers. What we're attempting to do is we're starting with these free Zumba classes to try and bring the women of the neighborhood in for a month, and we're going to end with a party for posadas. And then starting in the new year, we're going to start building a backyard garden program based on the women that come through the Zumba program and want to help us and be promotoras. It's based on a model in San Ysidro with another NGO that we work with, Casa Familiar, and they have close to 5,000 people a year now go through their Zumba classes. And that provides a core of almost 100 women who come out and do all the projects that they do, that go to all their meetings, that go to the EPA, all these other things. So I'll be there tomorrow from probably about 3 o'clock. It's in Terraza San Bernardo, which is just over the hill here on the Playas Road, just south of Divina Providencia. Anybody who wants to come to the canyon and to either meet with the people that we work with the way that Yuritsi's done, or think about native plants or green infrastructure or any of those things, you're all welcome. I'm going to be coming once a week for a month. If you want to get introduced to people, please come out, check it out, and we'd love to have anyone who wants to help out.
Okay, so I try to not to participate at all, but this is a forum, an interdisciplinary forum made for you, by you. So you are so welcome, and we are so pleased that you are here as usual. So we are always available to help you to organize this kind of forum for the next period. So you are welcome, and we are so happy that you came to visit us as usual. Okay, so let's go to it now.